You're proud of this. You don't rush, you research, you wait. And that discipline builds your income. It builds your business. It feels responsible. But that habit has a cost. Delay is not neutral. It's a decision with consequences, especially when the window closes quietly. No warning, just saying, not today. The year your income dips, the year you step back, the year a deal doesn't refill fast enough. That's when you find out. You didn't wait safely. You waited past struck, like arriving at the airport after the gate closes, but before the plane moves. The seat is still there. You just can't board. So when did being informed quietly turn into being late? Hello, my name is Robert Balgach. I'm the founder and CEO of Black Swan Insurance Group. Since 2017, our firm has helped over 20,000 families and business owners architect tax-efficient income strategies. And those families have left us over 850 five-star reviews, not because they found the perfect product, but because they acted while structure was still available. If you're watching this because IUL keeps showing up in your research stack, but never makes it into your balance sheet, this conversation is for you. Not to convince you, not to simplify it, but to show you what waiting quietly erodes. Think of this less like choosing a fund and more like pouring a foundation. You don't argue with concrete after it sets. So if you want to explore whether your foundation window is still open, you can click on the link below and you can book a calm, pressure-free strategy call with us. But first, you need to see what waiting actually brings, because the first thing that disappears is optionality. Meet Jason. Jason is now 52 years old. He runs a digital commerce business that looks enviable from the outside. High margins, smart systems, variable income, but strong, and no employer retirement plan. Everything he owns, it's either inside the business, taxable brokerage accounts, or real estate. Jason didn't ignore IULs. He studied it for years. White papers, illustrations, IRS code sections, podcasts, carrier comparison. He treated the decision like a lab experiment that needed one more data. And he just kept saying, I just want to fully understand before I commit. And that felt discipline. Meanwhile, his income was speaking. His health was clean, and his tax bracket was unforgiving. This was the only stretch of the road with all green lights. Jason grew up watching his parents rebuild after layoffs. Liquidity meant safety. Commitment felt like exposure. So he kept the door cracked, never closed it, but never walked through it either. At 50, his business slowed, collapsed, just enough friction to matter, a platform change, a margin squeeze, less surplus. And that's when the cost showed up. Because if you're still earning well and still researching, this is the only phase where this works cleanly. After that, structure doesn't disappear, it just hardens. Point number one, the window you don't see closing. IUL isn't purchased, it's designed. And design depends on time, health, and contribution runway. Jason assumed waiting preserved flexibility, but waiting actually narrows the design lane. Age increases cost. Health introduces friction, and the number of clean funding years shrinks. At 45, Jason could have spread funding wide and shallow. At 52, the same outcome required depth and precision. This isn't about returns. It's about scaffolding. You either build it while the building is empty, or try to bolt it on while people are living inside. And that's the difference between designing flexibility and reacting under pressure. The IRS allows tax advantage treatment under Section 7702, but only if the structure is correct from day one. Push too hard later, and you risk max status. Start too soft, and the policy never carries weight. Jason didn't lose money by waiting. He lost structural slack. And slack is what absorbs the next shock. Point number two, overeducation as a holding pattern. Jason didn't wait because he was confused. He waited because research felt like control. And for analytical earners, learning can quietly become a holding pattern. You tell yourself you're staying flexible. But flexibility without structure is just delay. With a better vocabulary, here's the part most people miss. Understanding doesn't create options. Timing does. When income is high, you're laying track ahead of the train. When income is uneven, you're trying to build track under it. Jason assumed waiting reduced risk. He didn't. It moved risk forward to a moment where he needs certainty the most. And that moment doesn't announce itself. 2 years later, at 52, Jason's business stabilized, but his energy did. A health scare forced him to step back. This is where spreadsheets fail. When income drops, most strategies reveal their seams. You're forced into trade-offs, selling assets, triggering taxes, locking in bad time. Jason's IUL had to function like a pressure valve, not a growth engine. Conservatively designed, safely under MEC limits, policy loans model under stress. The interruption came first. The structure held because it was built for disruption. If a plan only works when everything goes right, it isn't a plan. And waiting makes designing for turbulence much harder. Point number 3, the cost of being slightly late. This was never about upside. It was about reducing future fragility. By starting later, Jason had to compress funding. That increased early pressure, reduced margin for error, required discipline. It's working, but narrow. Like threading a needle instead of driving to an open gate. Delay did not disqualify. He just narrowed the doorway. And narrow doorways don't forgive bumps. The villain isn't bad advice. It's assuming time is neutral. Before I show you his numbers, this matters. These are planning assumptions, not promises, and the structure matters more than the projection. Jason funded approximately $15,000 a month, $180,000 a year, for 9 years. Projected cash flow around age 65 is roughly $2.25 million. Sustainable policy income, approximately $194,000 per year for the rest of his life. Assuming discipline and conservative management. All of this without triggering taxable income, without selling assets up to market drop, without asking permission from an employer or bank. Is it guaranteed? No, nothing is guaranteed, except debt and taxes. Caps can change. Laws require management. Poor discipline can break it. But it replaced an exposed future with a design one. By the age of 91, he would have drawn more than $5 million in tax-free income, and there's still a debt benefit of over $800,000 left for his family. And here's what matters the most. Jason didn't wait for clarity. He waited until waiting became expensive. So if you're still researching, still watching, still learning, that's fine. Just don't confuse patience with safety. Delay is not neutral. It's a decision with consequences. So if you want to see whether your window is still open, click on the link below, book a strategy call, not to buy anything, but to measure what waiting is already costing. Because the real risk isn't doing this wrong. It's realizing the runway was longest when you felt safest standing still. And remember, it's not what you earn, it's what you keep. Enjoy the